Hi, my name is Austin Davis. I'm from South Haven, Mississippi. So I was watching this movie the other day, The Lion King. I'm sure y'all heard about it. So basically, there's a vast kingdom ruled by the Lion King Mufasa. Mufasa shows his son Simba around the kingdom, but he tells him, do not go into the places where the light does not touch. I think we can all relate when someone tells us not to do something inside of us makes us want to do it more. We're thinking, oh, it can't be that bad, right? You know, Simba goes out exploring, doing what kids do, and while he's exploring, he gets caught up in some trouble. That trouble leads him into the darkness. And you know how it goes. You've done the thing you were told not to do, and it got you into some trouble. And as you know, or could probably guess, Simba and Nala get into some big trouble. While they were playing around, they stumbled into the dark areas that aren't within the kingdom's boundaries. They get into a heap of trouble. Hyenas are chasing them. They try to run away, but they get cornered. Simba shows a little bit of strength, a little bit of pride, maybe a little bit of sacrifice, but it isn't enough. And out of nowhere, Mufasa swoops in and saves Simba and Nala. Simba knows he's messed up, and Mufasa says, "You deliberately disobeyed me." This piece really stuck with me because it showed that even though Mufasa was disappointed with his son, he still did not abandon him. Just like God, he does not abandon us. This is proven and expanded on in the book of Jonah. If you'd like to follow along with me, starting in Jonah chapter 1, verse 15. So they picked up Jonah and hurled him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging. Then the men feared the Lord exceedingly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. And the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Starting in chapter 2. Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from the belly of the fish, saying, I called out to the Lord out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. For you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the flood surrounded me. All your waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away by your sight. Yet I shall again look upon your holy temple. The waters closed over me to take my life. The deep surrounded me. Weeds wrapped around my head. What does God's mercy look like? Do you think that mercy is a bed of roses? Do you think mercy is a fulfilling meal after a long day of hard work? No. Mercy is seen as simply saying, you know, you owe a lot of money. You're in a big debt. And God will swoop in and say, it's all right, don't worry about it, you know. You don't have to pay the money. That is an example of mercy, and this is a smooth process. You don't have to pay the money. You're happy, and you walk away. That is not the mercy of the Lord. The Lord's mercy is not what you think. The mercy of God is not as simple and smooth and straightforward. It does not take that simplistic form. It's a difficult process. For example, with Jonah, it's not that simple. Falling into the ocean and getting swallowed by a big fish, that's dramatic. Now, you'd think that being swallowed by a fish is surely not a form of mercy. Of all things, the Lord appoints a fish to give Jonah a second chance. You see, Jonah, the disciple of the Lord, is about to die. He says, he called out from Sheol and the Lord heard him. Sheol is a place of the dead, or basically the grave. And Jonah is claiming that he is there. And the fish saves Jonah from the depths of the sea, the grave, and gives him a second chance at salvation. Why does the Lord do this, though? I mean, Jonah is called to preach at Nineveh, and he turns away from God and disobeys him just as Simba did. And God showed up just like Mufasa and rescued him, even though he disobeyed, because God does not abandon his own people. So now, after God preserved him inside the belly of the fish, Jonah decides to repent. And for 3 whole days, he sits there and repents. Move down with me to verse 7 in chapter 2. When my life was fainting away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you into your holy temple. Those who pay regard to vain idols forsake their hope of steadfast love. But I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will pay. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Look again, look closer at verse 9. What I have vowed, I will pay. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Jonah calls out to the Lord, and he says that he will carry out what the Lord has commanded of him. He will go to the big bad Nineveh and preach the word of the Lord. By doing this, Jonah is given a second chance by the Lord. Starting in verse 10, the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah upon the dry land. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it the message that I tell you. The passage tells us that Jonah was given a second chance of life, and he carries out the Lord's word to the great big bad city of Nineveh, as he was called to do. Jonah is given his second chance, and he saves a nation. What are you going to do with your second chance? Despite your fear, despite your concerns, despite how you feel about what God called you to do. Because you don't know what major change in this world you can bring about by walking with the Lord. Something that I experienced back, I think it was in 4th grade. I was sitting in the back of the bus and I was thinking that it would be a great idea to try and build up my popularity a little bit. I decided it would be a good idea to disobey what I've learned and start saying some bad language, some cuss words to look cool. I thought, hey, if I start using this bad language like the cool kids, maybe I'll be one of the cool kids. So I'm sitting in the back of the bus, dirty mouthing and carrying on, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, this will definitely make me one of the cool kids. And I didn't learn until a few days later when my parents came and talked to me. They asked me, a kid on the bus was listening in on some of your conversations with the other kids, and he said that you were using some very crude language back there. In my head, I was like, oh no, they found out. I think we can all figure out what happened after that little incident. I was grounded for a while, and I was forced to sit there and think about my awesome plan to be popular. I sat there, and I repented. I told myself that I would not use crude language from that day on. Skip forward a while to a few weeks ago. I was at my school soccer practice, and at my school soccer practice, as you can all assume, they don't usually have the cleanest chatter. And one of my teammates asked me, he goes, Austin, I've noticed that I've never heard you cuss before. I respond, that's because I haven't said any cuss words. He looked a bit surprised and asked me, how do you do it? How do you not cuss? And I said, because I followed the word. And sadly, we were interrupted by my coach telling us to get on the line to run suicides. But anyway, I still hear him sometimes slip up and say a cuss word or two, but he has gotten so much better about his language that I know it was probably our brief conversation that motivated him to change, even if it's the smallest amount. Think of what you can do with your calling. Think of the impact you can make on someone else's life, even if it's the smallest amount. So I ask you again, what are you going to do with your second chance?